Well, I had some practice with that too.
네.
After that lovely walk by the river and dinner in a sweet and quiet restaurant, this was Friday, we arrived home about 10, and I was hoping to go to sleep early so that in the morning I could prepare for this service.
네.
But when I arrived home, after a few minutes I walked into my office, and a little bit later I noticed that a light bulb from the ceiling had broken and shattered in many pieces on the floor. Now, ordinarily that's not a big deal. You just have to have a broom and a dustpan. But we had just moved. Where is a broom? It took me quite a while to find even a large broom. And I did not find a dustpan. But I realized, okay, 종이
네, 종이로
would allow me to pick up the bigger pieces. But actually, so I did that. But actually, Eugen and I had not noticed this broken glass on the floor early enough. We wear slippers in the house, and I saw we had walked the little pieces of glass in many places around the house. So I had to vacuum the whole house. That was not what I planned. And I was actually sweating, but I remembered, keep the climate for the garden. When I went to bed, I thought, well, the next morning I'll have a space of quiet meditation to prepare for service. But when I got up, there were so many other things I had to do, even to begin thinking about preparing for service. And I realized, while I was doing these chores, this is actually perfect preparation for this service, because it gave me an immediate connection with what your lives are like a lot of the time. Many interruptions, a lot of pressure, things don't go the way you expected. How do we sustain the right climate then? The right climate in our own thoughts and feelings, because those moments are what determine whether the garden will grow. I want to read just a short quote of some of the words that really penetrated my heart on Thursday morning when I first sat. But the beautiful garden that is available to come forth has been prevented because the setting wasn't right. In other words, the climate wasn't right. Only certain aspects remained, certain aspects of the garden remained, so there might be survival. Isn't survival the state of consciousness of many, maybe most people on earth? Forget about beauty, forget about delicate, just survive. Without the right climate, the coarser, hardier plants survive, but not the finer, delicate ones. In other words, the coarser ranges of ourselves may do all right, but rarely is there a climate for the sacred passion of our being to flourish. There are ranges of our heart that simply cannot open without the right climate. And so the garden becomes full of weeds or it dies. Many things happen in our lives. When something happens that brings a feeling of anger, is there a violent storm in our garden? Or another type of reaction? Hard frost. We withdraw in cool aloofness. Or we just work too long so the balance is not present in our life. That's like a sizzling heat that kills the plants. Complaining is like harsh, dry winds that dry up the water of truth. And judgment is like thick black clouds that block the sun's love. In such extreme conditions, hardy plants, and especially weeds, may thrive, but not the finer, delicate ones. What kind of climate do we keep in our garden? What kind of climate do we sustain in our thoughts and feelings? So I want to give you a few moments to think about that. Just the last few days or maybe even the last few hours. I won't ask you to share that. Just observe. No judgment at all. What kind of climate was in my mind and heart? 잘 이해합니까? 오케이, 시작합시다. Another minute enough? Okay. So I hope you were able to do that with no judgment. Good. If we realize what a beautiful garden is planted for us in heaven, just waiting for the right conditions to flourish in the earth, it's easier to remember to keep the right climate. When the urge for a violent storm comes up, if we remember what it's damaging, we can choose differently. Or the sizzling heat of working too much without balance. Such choices block the precious seeds of heaven's magic coming into the earth. So when we really understand that, I think it's easier to choose to keep the right climate. Do I want to follow this rush of emotion and judgment? Or is what would come of heaven's power to create more valuable than that? And you know, we can start by maybe doing it, remembering it once in a day when we otherwise wouldn't have remembered. And then gradually grow to where it becomes a consistent thing. That's what I'm hoping this service will initiate. I have found a mantra helps me remember this. I recommend you create your own, but I'll share mine. Dwell in the garden with thankfulness and ease, and let heaven's design emerge. Bring spiritual expression into each circumstance and trust how it unfolds. We can choose to dwell in the garden.